Well, good morning and welcome to the Paris on the Potomac show. My name is John Case, and my good friend and co-host Karen Valentine is looks great this morning. I mean, she looks like awake, and she doesn't look like me. So,
Well,
so,
well, good
so
morning.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it's because I've been awake all night.
Uh,
Um,
anyway, by
I
the way,
just,
before we get started, www.enlightenradio.org is our website, and the podcasts from the show can be found on podcast.enlightenradio.org. And Karen has a special guest this morning, and I'm going to let her do the intro here. It's kind of an interesting twist for us, but I'm just excited to about this with a little conversation we had this morning with Mr. Jensen. Then I can't wait to see where we go from here. Karen, give us an intro.
I certainly will. Well, good morning. As I said, sleep is something that is interrupted nowadays by the state of the world. And yes, usually John and I perhaps drone on a little too much about our woes, but I was blessed a couple weeks ago or 10 days ago to have something pop up in my inbox. And I even have to go back, Bob, and find out how exactly I was on that email list. But I found myself listening to this recording of the song, the classic song, Which Side Are You On? Over and over. And I thought, there's a reason this showed up in my inbox, and it's really fascinating to me. It came to me on a day that I really needed a little bit of hope, and to hear somebody doing something artful. And a little background, we have called our show in the past Paris on the Potomac, and this happened uh, right around the time John and I said, you know what? We need a little bit more art. We need to go back to calling the show Paris on the Potomac
Yes, right.
and adding a little bit of
No
hope.
losers, no losers.
No winners and losers anymore. It's all one-sided. So I am going to introduce to you Bob Jensen. He is the I get creator of this project called Which Side Are You On? It is a remake of the classic song. Bob is a well-rounded writer, musician, poet, booking agent, and obviously a lover of peace. And he grew up in northern New Brunswick and has lived all over Canada and has settled in Montreal. And I thought it was interesting. He refers to Montreal as the poor man's Paris. And here in West Virginia, we kind of refer to our area as a little bit of Paris in a very um, interesting state.
It's a very Shepherdstown expression.
Yes.
Yes, very good.
So I am going to let Bob tell us about his project because it's really fascinating how it came about. But I also want to invite Bob and have a feeling that Bob will become a little bit of part of our thread because John has another show on the podcast that is a poetry show. And I would
We
like
do.
to explore your poetry some more, Bob. And then, John and his wife Carol, as well as I, have been longtime folk music fans, and I've been a booking agent as well. And we have a lot of overlap. So it's fun to meet you, Bob. I am so happy that this random occurrence happened, and I look forward to sharing with all of our listeners your story about how you came up with the idea for Which Side Are You On?
Well, good morning, and thank you very much for that. As I was saying to John before the podcast started, I'll just rehash the way this whole project began was really It's just one of those things. It just happened. It wasn't even my idea. I have an old friend from high school I keep in touch with, and one day he emailed me and he said, somebody should re-record Which Side Are You On, but rewrite the lyrics so that it's not a labor thing, but so that it addresses what's happening in the world with the proliferation of hate groups and the rise of the far right and the resurgence of fascism. And I said, wow, what a great idea. I'm going to do that. And as I was telling John, I mean, this was after COVID had devastated our industry. I work in the music industry, so I really didn't have 2 extra cents to rub together to put into anything, but sometimes I get these crazy ideas and I run with them. So I said, oh, hell yeah, I'll do it. And then I instantly I was serious about it because it seemed like such a good idea. And as I was kind of ruminating, I thought, geez, I'm going to ask some musical friends if they'd like to participate. So my first ask was James Keelahan, a Canadian folk music icon of many years and an old friend, if he'd like to be involved. And he got back to me right away and he said, sign me up. And I thought, geez, that was easy. Like, wow, maybe artists will be interested in doing this. So I started contacting different artists around the world. And I was getting nothing but, yeah, sure, I'll do this. And within a couple of days, I had a half dozen really fantastic artists from all over the world. And I thought, I worked with Bruce Coburn for quite a few years as his agent, and I still keep in touch with his manager, Bernie Finkelstein, who I consider to be a good friend. And I thought, I'm going to ask Bernie if Bruce would be interested in this. And I thought, it's a long shot, but what the hell? I like to play the long shots. So I emailed Bernie, and he got back to me, and to my surprise and delight, he said, geez, I think Bruce should do this. Give me a few days and I'll get back to you. And within a few days, Bruce had signed on. And I got real excited. And then I thought, the last time I saw Which Side Are You On was at Pete Seeger's birthday party. I was Pete Seeger's agent briefly towards the end of his life. The last time I had seen the song performed was at Pete Seeger's birthday at Madison Square Garden when Bruce Coburn and Ani DeFranco did it. So I don't know Ani DeFranco. I don't know her management people, but I put out the request. I made a cold call and they got back to me and said, yeah, Annie would love to do this. And so then I got real excited. And so by the end of the day, we had 16 folk roots artists from 6 countries on 4 continents involved, as well as a whole bunch of people who did cameos in the video. And some of them would be known mostly to Canadians because there were quite a few Canadians, but there were others who might be known to your audience, people like Eric Bogle, the Scottish expat who's been living in Australia for many long years and writing some of the greatest anti-war songs ever. And I don't know if you guys watch the Trailer Park Boys down there.
I love the Trailer
Yeah.
Park
I
Boys.
haven't seen him. No, no.
Well, we got Ricky from the Trailer Park Boys. He did a cameo. And so we got a whole bunch of people like that. We got Miles Goodwin from the rock group April Wine, and so some of these people, rather than participating in the music, were just holding up signs saying, which side are you on? So as all these people were signing on to this project, I thought, oh shit, whoops, sorry. I thought, oh gee, somebody's got
It's
to tell
okay.
these
It's the
people I
internet.
have no money. So then I started emailing all these people back and saying, "Oh, thank you. We're excited that we're doing this. And by the way, you're going to have to cover your own studio expenses." And nobody had a problem with that. So we did the recording for pennies. And I know a philanthropist, a man in Nova Scotia, who is both a good Samaritan and a patron of the arts. And I contacted him to see if he might step up and take care of some of our hard costs. And he said, yes. And he didn't set any limits. He said, you tell me what you need and I'll take care of it. So everything was falling into place. And then I realized that if this is going to be effective, we're going to need a video. And I had never done a video before. Well, I do little videos for my poetry, but nothing on this scale. So I recruited a local guy. I was living in Prince Edward Island at the time to be the video editor and to put it together. And I told all the artists, we need a clip of you singing your part to the song. And so all the videos started coming in. And then we got, all the people doing the aforementioned cameos to send in clips as well. And I think the video, I think it turned out really well. And I have to tell you that the total budget for putting that video together was $0. We did not spend one penny making that video. And I think the reason that we were able to do that is because the idea behind the song and the project resonated so strongly with all these people that they said, yeah, let's just make this happen. We need to step up and say this. And so everybody did step up. And we released the song to radio 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago in September. And it did quite well. We got airplay all over the world, although there were some stations who said, we're not going to play this. It's just too controversial, which I was disappointed about. But I spoke again to Bruce Coburn's manager, and he said, I'm not at all surprised, Bob. He said, you have no idea how difficult it was for us to get songs like Rocket Launcher and If a Tree Falls in the Forest on the radio. And he said that some of those songs were not played in Canada until they were first picked up in the US. So with everything that's been happening since Donald Trump, got back into office, the world has descended into such madness that I thought the message behind this song is more important now, is more urgent than when we released it 2.5 years ago. So I'm going to re-release it. And so that has been the impetus. And we're getting a lot of action with the video. And it's early days, but so far we have confirmed airplay in Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, and England. And I'm hopeful that people are going to run with it because, the question in the song is which side are you on? And we've just seen which side the Trump administration is on. It's on the side of Russia and fascism. And so that question, the whole world is asking that question right now. Europe is asking it. Canada is asking it. NATO is asking it. Which side are you on and which side are we on? So I know that a song is not going to change the world, but what I'm hoping is that we can raise a strong, passionate voice from the folk roots music community and get people talking. Which side are you on? And what are you going to do about it? It's one thing to say, oh, I'm on this side, but what are you going to do? Are you going to vote? Are you going to participate in politics? Will you protest? Will you write a letter to the editor? Will you talk to your crazy old uncle and see maybe you can convince him of the error of his ways? And so that's what we want to do. We want to get people talking. We want the world to know that the folk music community is on the side of democracy. And there has been some good news. Here in Canada, of course, we've been uh, quite anxious under the threat of these tariffs that Trump has been threatening us with. But it looks like he's backed down from the tariffs on both Canada and Mexico. And I think the reason that that's happening, well, there are a number of reasons. First of all, the markets are responding terribly. The markets are tanking. But in Canada, on this issue, we are unified in a way that I don't think we've been unified since World War II. It has been nothing short of astonishing. The boycott of American goods, the people, stores can't keep Canadian flags on the shelves, you know, and so we are unified. And I think what's happening in America is that America is not unified. You have the Trump people who are saying, yeah, yeah, tariffs, but then you have everybody else who's saying, I don't think so. And so we are prepared. We know that this could hurt. We know it could hurt a lot, but we're prepared to suffer to show that we are not going to bend. And also, another fundamental difference, I think, between our two governments is that our government is saying, we've got your back. And if these tariffs are put in place, and if Canadians start to suffer, we're going to help. And so Canadians are feeling pretty good today about the whole tariff thing. It might be too early to say we've won, but I think we're on our way to winning. And that does feel good.
Well,
Bob, thank you for being so
wow.
thorough in that introduction of the project. And there are several things that came to mind. The first is that you started this when the Ukraine war, kind of around the time that the Ukraine war had just started, when Russia invaded Ukraine. And what I find so fascinating i- is the foreshadowing, the insight that the project had about what was to come and what was really happening. And now here we are. And John will speak to this, I'm sure, because he has a family who lives in Canada. And I find myself emailing my friends that live in other countries around the world and feeling like I need to apologize.
I
Like,
understand that
I
completely.
am sorry. This absolute insanity does not, it's not representative of a lot of us. There are a lot of us that are not are not aligned with this,
I
and
know.
I'm sorry for what it's doing to everybody else in the world. And of course, I'm even sorry for what it's doing for the people with blinders who voted for him. I'm sorry for those people. And so we're at a real struggle, a conundrum of a way to move forward, of a way to be as peaceful people. We find ourselves uh, angry, like angry beyond anything I've lived in my lifetime, and I feel completely misrepresented and just lost within my own home space. So we appreciate people all over the world that feel our struggle, and I think that this project, this recording, is a prime example of how people can come together and kind of share that collective hurting, but also collective rising up. And I'm going to let John speak to, I'm sure it's kind of triggered some things in John's world too. So how about it, John?
Yeah, my world. Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, thanks. That was and my daughter lives on the north side of Lake Ontario, and she married a Canadian. I went to McGill University and married a Canadian.
Oh, my daughter
Why
did
did she
too.
do that? I don't know. uh, anyway, it's been she's been expressing, to me and from her family, from her husband's family, especially up there, who living mostly in Quebec, Montreal, um, and the very same thing that you just communicated. That is that the national basically resentment of the insulting behavior of Trump toward Canada as you know uh, generations long alliance and friendship that just staggered. I think the just staggered people. And it did me. But I mean, and I was getting used to Trump's stuff. So I'm not sure that I think the thing predates the threat of fascism predates Ukraine here.
Sure.
I'm sorry, it didn't start there. But but I understand how from the currently very destabilized international situation. Um, I'm not sure it's entirely a product of Trump, because Trump's more. There's been a very big change in the distribution of economic and with economic goes political power in the world since World War II. And those tectonic kind of like economic shifts, especially since the economies are so globalized, so many of them,
Yeah.
more than they used to be. So therefore, all the institutions created after World War II are they're having trouble adapting, and as are the democracies, because the divisions, once divisions get sharp enough in a country, where you don't believe the elections, you don't agree with the judges, the litigators can't get past, they can't pass legislation because they can't get enough of a majority to keep from canceling each other's last act out, with a new one. All that stuff. And then the fundamental economic divisions, like in the United States, are, well, even compared to, the 60s when I thought they were already out of bounds. I mean, they're just unbelievable now. So um, I don't know what it seems to me like the disruption that Trump is causing with alliances, and he wants to get out of NATO. He doesn't want to defend Europe. He doesn't want to pay for it. He's not going to make any money out of it. He'd rather go nuke China, whatever, than spend any money. I mean, he has got these, but the whole point is that the world's in motion.
Yeah.
And you have drawn attention to the price that we're likely to pay in peace.
Well, to address, I mean, you've covered a lot of ground there. To address one of the things you've said, this whole business about the 51st state, our Prime Minister Trudeau,
Yeah.
a couple of days ago, when asked about this, he said that, that this is not about fentanyl, and it's not. I mean, there are guys downtown right now in bars in Montreal who have more fentanyl than was taken across the border in January, a half an ounce. I mean, it's ridiculous. He said what Trump wants to do is destroy our economy so that he can annex us.
Yeah.
That is tantamount to an act of war. So
Yes.
you can believe that Canadians are pissed off
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
that we will never, to think that a wonderful sovereign nation respected around the world, 40 million people, would give up its autonomy, would give up its sovereignty to become one state of 51 in another country. Never going to happen. You guys have your way of doing things, And and that's great. We respect that. We have our ways of doing things. We pay more in taxes, but man, we get more. We don't have the kind of disparity between the super rich and the super poor you have. We distribute the wealth more evenly. We have better education. We have better journalism. We have superior health care. You know, I have stage 1 cancer right now and I'm fine. Everything is good. But I've had every test in the book in the last little while. I have had MRIs and blood tests and scopes and every damn thing going, and it hasn't cost me one red penny. And we're not going to give that up ever. And if Donald Trump thinks that he can force us to bend so that he can take us over, man, he is sadly mistaken.
I love to hear the passion around what you just said, and there's so much packed into that. You know, there are so many people that voted for the current president of the United States that are in need of exactly what you just described. They are in need of, just human dignity, support around health and education um but they don't, you know, there's a disconnect as to how that happens. And you know, I love that other countries are finding their strength and letting us know their strength. I think it's exactly what needs to happen. It's going to be a painful lesson for a lot of people here in the United States, but um,
I had a thought that it's the scariest one that occurs to me, but it may be the most hopeful one too. Um, and it took the whole world to save the world from Hitler Germany.
mhm.
And there's when when you say which side are you on, and the rise of fascism due to what in some ways maybe it doesn't even matter. It does matter in the end what is actually causing it. But I think the fact that the whole world is getting aroused about it. For example, I mean I see that the president of Mexico, this Sheinbaum, um, has been trying to be as nice as possible to Trump. But when he demanded that they put 10,000 troops on the border, to do something about immigration and the drug traffic, she put 20,
Hmm.
which I thought was an interesting gesture. Says, Trump's been sitting there talking about, well, if there's a cartel over there, I think I've identified all the Mexican cartels as you know, uh, terrorist organizations, and therefore I can go in and arrest them without paying any attention to the Mexican government's sovereignty or anything else. Um, that kind of pretext for invasion or intervention. So I thought that her doubling the number of troops was a good reply.
Well, I'll tell you something about the border. Less than 1% of the fentanyl that goes into the United States comes from Canada. Less than 1% of illegal immigrants entering into the United States come from Canada. We have a very strong border. And in fact, we get way more drugs coming into Canada, including fentanyl, from America than you guys get coming the other way. All of the illegal, not all, but most of the illegal guns that are coming into Canada across the border, they're coming from America. So actually, Canada has a bigger problem with contraband coming into our country from America than vice versa.
You're right. My daughter's husband's brother. Yeah, I'm his brother. He works for the customs, Canadian customs. He was going through exactly what you're talking about, only
Yeah,
much worse than than you described, actually. So yes, it's ridiculous. Well, the Canadian thing with Trump just exposes that the entire thing's a fraud.
it's
I
all a
Yeah,
mean,
fraud.
yeah,
He's insane.
it's a mix of ridiculous, right?
It
You,
is.
you might argue that there's drugs. I'm sure there are drugs coming in from Mexico, and guns too, and vice versa. But the point being is that that's not the point. That's not the point. The point
exactly.
is, I want to take over everything you're doing. I want to control what's going in and out of your country, and I want to ice my enemies from ever doing business with you or anybody else and blah 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 blah. That's just like Don Corleone, only not so nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think, people try to guess what's Trump's strategy. I don't believe he has one. I think he has a monkey brain and an idea comes into his brain and he says, "Oh yeah, we'll do this. We'll have tariffs or we'll whatever," without thinking ahead as to what that will entail and what the repercussions are. And so he's just cavalier. He just shoots from the hip without ever thinking, well, what's going to happen here?
Well,
And
he did have one. No, he did have one. Well, yes, but he both yes and no. He did have one very specific plan, and that is that the tariff money was going to pay for the $400 billion tax cut to the rich that he wants to pass, because that's what he promised them. All the
yeah,
billionaires. He's promised them that
yeah,
they're going to get a free ride to do whatever they want, and he's going to give them a big fat check too.
that's
And
that's
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 how he was going to pay for it with the tariffs.
that's textbook oligarchy. That's
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly
yeah,
that's what Putin did, right? He aligned
yes.
himself with the richest people in the country and so
Well, he shot two of them. He killed two of them that didn't agree with him.
oh yeah, well, there's been more than a
Okay,
few Russians have fallen out of windows over the years.
but whatever. Yes,
But yeah, and the seduction of the underinformed population in the United States, we have a underinformed population who also are impoverished and who have never slept in satin sheets. And he promised the satin sheets before the knife in the heart. You're going to get murdered on very nice satin sheets.
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I
like
think
at the Riviera in Gaza.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, my God, you know, what next? I mean, the way I don't know how you guys are seeing things down there, but as Canadians look at at America right now, as we look at the Trump administration, and I think a lot of the world is seeing this, we're seeing a fascist administration. And I don't think you can fight fascism unless you say the F word. And I'm so tired of people talking about far right politics and pussyfooting it around. Let's call
Hmm.
it what it is. It's fascism. He's destroying all of the democratic institutions, a country that was founded on revolution and for centuries has defined itself as being freedom and democracy loving, is saying to this senile old man who is dismantling every aspect of democracy, okay, well, that's a bummer, but okay. And we're thinking, well, geez, when is this revolutionary country going to step up and do something? You know? So that's our hope. That's
And
our hope.
I'm glad you brought that up because, every day I have to kind of analyze what headline is bothering me the most. And today's is, the 10 Democrats that voted with the Republicans on censoring Al Green. Whatever you feel about what Al Green did, the bottom line is this is not the time to act like there's anything normal about what's happening. One of
What side are
one of
you on?
one of the Democrats said, well, when a Republican voiced his opinion during Obama's first speech, I'm like, that is like way different than apples and oranges. That's like kumquats and persimmons. You know, like
Oh dear.
that was a different world. Like, don't try to normalize this, please, because you're making me
No,
crazy.
I think it's the duty of people to stand up and call out publicly in every way what is going on. And so that's what we're doing.
Well,
And
this is
I
a
have never
wonderful.
presumed to try to tell an American what an American should do, what an American should think, how Americans should govern themselves. That's none of my business. But now that this senile old man is threatening our country with annexation,
Yep.
who wants to destroy our economy, now I have opinions.
Absolutely. And we appreciate your opinions. And we do keep our podcast to about a half an hour. We would love to have you back on, Bob. We are going
Okay?
to support the project. Keep emailing John and I any
Yeah.
updates, anything we can do to help.
Okay?
Um, and like I said, we would love to have you talk more about the project, talk more about politics. We will send invites as they're appropriate. John may want to explore some of your poetry. I know you have a new book of poetry
Yeah. Send me some.
album
Yeah.
called Other Voices. And I just want to leave us with a quote that I just thought was really so poignant and so far from what we're experiencing. This is Cornell West. You can't lead the people if you don't love the people. You
Amen.
can't save the people if you don't serve the people. We have never been further away from that
Yeah.
in our country,
Yeah.
and it hurts our hearts. And
Yeah.
thank you for your support up
Thank
there in
you.
Canada.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I leave you with one thing?
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
I would encourage your audience to please find the video online. The name of the group is Artists for Action. And of course, the song is Which Side Are You On? And I would hope that they would maybe want to share it with their friends and families, put it on social media so that we can maybe get as many people as possible talking about all of this.
I'll put a link to it on the webpage that I create. Okay, no problem.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and I know everybody involved in the project does as well.
All right. Thank you,
God
Bob.
bless you.
Take care. It's late, but
Okay.
everything comes
All right.
next. Okay.
Bye-bye.